Was up by 34 points at three-quarter time. Sydney were able to roll them in the end. It's their biggest ever come from behind margin at three-quarter time. Maybe want to focus on the fact that there was 13 players who played in round one who hadn't had a pre-season game. Tim, did they err maybe in hindsight on too many of the players that hadn't had a good preparation?
Well, it's an interesting question because they did take 13 underdone players into this game, and there were other players that played really well during the NAB Cup series. I think that would have taken up a lot of discussion time in the lead up to this game. We know that they really didn't know whether or not they were going to be able to play until Tuesday, late afternoon Tuesday, whether or not they'd had that team. But
they were brave, weren't they?
Well, they were brave, but you could feel that it was coming. You just sensed that they weren't going to be able to run out the four quarters. Would it have made much of a difference maybe for them to have two or three other players that are younger players that maybe weren't as credentialed as some of those other players, but had the capacity maybe just to run a bit harder, a bit longer throughout the course of that game? But they didn't, the way they played, they didn't lose any fans at the weekend, the Bombers.
On the flip side, the Swans, they were sloppy.
They were.
And look, they got beaten by GWS in the first round last year. They are notoriously slow starters,
yeah.
and when you're playing a grand final, you are underprepared, but they were playing an underprepared side. But it was just basic skill errors that they made. They were really sloppy.
This performance really surprised me from Sydney because we know that they were really disappointing in the grand final. And during the week, Jared McVeigh had talked about the anger that they'd felt after that performance, and the only way that they could really rectify it was to get out there and put a better showing of themselves forward. But it took them a long time to get going.
We've heard a lot about Isaac Heaney, the young player. He kicked the winning goal in the end, and their list is in pretty good shape. And as Duck said, slow starters, but they tend to build pretty strongly throughout the year. At Talking Footy 7, get